Hello, everyone, and welcome to the episode 102 of the Office Hours podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Robert McLeod, whom I haven't seen in person in a really, really long time, but we've known each other for like over 15 years, I would say. I think originally we met around like Bitcoin meetup in Vancouver when it was so underground that nobody really knew what was going on or where it was going or what's going to come out of it. And I believe, I don't know if it was the same meetup, but it was the one where, people were paying for beers and pizzas in Bitcoin. And I think like at the time, it's probably like what, like 10 Bitcoins for a pizza or something like that. Which, if you consider it right
It
now,
was
it
a lot
seems
different.
absolutely mind boggling in terms of like, oh, I could have saved myself that pizza all those years ago and now I would have had thousands of dollars. But, nobody knew what's going to turn out of it. And Robert's been in the scene pretty much since then. And you've moved away from Vancouver to Berlin, from what I remember, some time ago. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm here in Berlin in the evening time talking with you and enjoying the winding down of a Wednesday evening.
Right on, right on. So you mentioned that you're building this new project, which is in the crypto space, but also in like identity space. Uh, why don't you tell me a little bit more about it?
Yeah, I'll tell you what I'm working on and then kind of maybe how it got to this point. I just decided to try and solve a big problem in the ecosystem of decentralized and distributed organizations, as I had spent quite a lot of time working in them or with them or being reliant on their output for technology in application development, etc. So I wanted to address the issue of building consensus in distributed groups. And I developed a specific process behind this and productized it, came up with an idea to put it into a product. And then I started telling people about it and trying to get some feedback and evolving the product through user testing and things like this. And actually was able to find a target market that was very interested in this as a tool. And as much as we face challenges in new tech communities and distributed or decentralized organizations, a lot of these problems are much worse in larger institutions and enterprise.
Oh,
So
absolutely. Yeah. I
when
mean,
I yeah, so
yeah,
when I
I was just gonna.
presented this solution to them, it was a product market fit pretty much. And so now we're just starting to look at building out this into existing enterprise infrastructure.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was gonna say that like even reaching consensus with five people about where to go for lunch it can be an insurmountable task. So if
Yeah,
you're working at the level of the enterprise, that probably doesn't even like double or triple. It just goes full on exponential.
yeah. So that's
So
what I was
yeah,
doing, and I did spend. Yeah, we haven't had a chance to really talk much over maybe over 10 years. But I was working, hanging out in the Bitcoin community, like you said, and then, tried to help organize some projects and some groups. We had a lot of cool stuff happening in Vancouver. I was able to go to San Francisco for a little while and work on some stuff there. Then I just kind of went about working in Web3, doing development, full stack dev, and then more solutions architecture, as I had a lot of knowledge and background in the tech, obviously starting so early. Yeah, so then I just did that for a while until I became a little bit dissatisfied with the state of the industry and then decided to go ahead and start my own thing again.
yeah. So like Web3, I haven't really been fully into the scene, but I'm following it tangentially. It's like one of my interests that I kind of keep coming back to every once in a while. And when I was looking at various things around Web3 space, I sort of been disappointed because, very early on, even during like the Bitcoin days, because I think some possibility of like some sort of smart contract type situation were already being discussed. That was like pre-Ethereum days. And ever since Web3, the most usage that I see out of any Web3 related things is going to be either online gambling or some sort of collector's game or something like that, or it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
an exchange from like one crypto coin to the other crypto coin.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember discussing things like I don't know, like a land ownership chart that traces like parcel transfers between people that is like blockchain based, like something that's actually quote unquote useful, because I mean you can build a casino with most technologies, but like the fit for actually building something that makes sense, like I haven't seen that materialized. Maybe I haven't been really looking, but like you've been in this space for a while. Can you maybe let
Yeah.
us know what's
I
happening
mean,
there?
it's kind of you're accurate mostly. There are some quality projects, but yeah, overall it hasn't Web3 itself, let's say as a sector, a technology sector, or a aspect of blockchain technology has been lagging in development. I would say not necessarily because for lack of effort. There's actually a lot of related challenges when it comes to Web3, primarily as it relates to user experience and as a consequence of the lack of direct or native support within operating systems, devices, or browsers. So
Hmm.
everything has to be patched around in terms of the user facing application. And it's just a very slow process. I give an example because a lot of people have expressed this dissatisfaction. And an example, if you're very familiar with, let's say, recent evolution of the browser environment, and you might also be familiar with the plugins context within
Like
browsers.
MetaMask and things like that.
Yeah, so there's of course a whole series of standards and protocols around just that in terms of your what you can build within that
Hmm.
and how you interface with that. It lags far behind the actual browser environment itself. So even like 5 years ago, there wasn't even, in let's say technical terms, there wasn't even ES5 support yet within the runtime environment that was available to us for developing a browser extension that would then allow you to properly build an app or wallet to use crypto or blockchain. So infamously, the MetaMask code base was uh, not really not really top quality. And so there was a lot of barriers around Web3 specifically that we weren't able to overcome, and we can't really overcome until some upgrades are made there. And just in terms of timeline, for instance, there's been many different security paradigms that have existed with this environment, and they've been evolving it over time. And a lot of what is made possible through this is defined by what's known as a manifest. If you're building an application within this context, you need to provide a manifest to the browser environment that defines entry points and core code base files and things like this. Just to have that updated from what was manifest v2 to manifest v3 took 5 years because
Yeah.
you have who has to agree. This is a new web standard. You need the Mozilla Foundation, you need the W3C on board, you need the Chromium project on board.
Well, I think
Basic,
Chrome's kind of been pushing for Manifest v3 for a long time.
yeah. Well, it's been in now for several
Yeah.
years, and they just started deprecating Manifest v2, I think, or if it's not already deprecated. But that took a lot. That took a lot of years for that just to be. It was made available in 2021, I believe, was the first year that we could use Manifest v3, but it wasn't. really supported by anything. And so now we have browsers that support, everybody supports Manifest v3, and you
Yeah.
can build, let's say, modern security protocols within that. But so it took 5 years just for
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
security context to get updated. And I don't know exactly how they're going to build consensus amongst that group or those groups for what will be Web3
Well,
interfacing. I
maybe
think
they have to use your product to build consensus around it, eh?
well, yeah, exactly, right? That's kind of the I'm working at the meta level here.
Yeah. But the
So
thing
that
is, like, with the Manifest v3, I don't know how it pertains to like crypto space specifically, but like Google had very selfish reasons for pushing that because like parts of it make ad blocking really, really difficult. So they've
true.
been gunning for V3 for a really long time, and everybody's been kind of kicking and screaming because, like, hey, everybody loves their uBlock origin.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm primarily a Firefox user, even though Mozilla's been really weird lately.
Okay.
And that one still runs on like the classic sandbox. So you can do very kind of deep blocking, which I really like.
Hmm.
So the day that I'll lose that ability in Firefox will be sad day indeed if they're going in that direction.
Yeah.
Uh,
It was a
but,
good upgrade from security perspective by restricting access to the real browser window context. I mean,
mhm,
originally browser plugins could just do anything and completely hijack the whole entire interface and keylog or steal any kind of credentials and have full access to the data context as well. So, I
mhm.
mean, security is just such a pain in the rear when it comes to crypto finance because of the considerations of digital cash. If you lose your money, you lose your
Yeah.
keys. I mean, you lost it. So
There's been a really interesting sort of philosophical almost debate ish that's been happening. I don't remember exact timelines. It was several years ago when somebody exploited some vulnerability in a smart contract and like moved some money around, and then uh, the smart contract owner was like legally compelled to do something to return the funds. And the question broadly was, okay, like either you have a distributed or crypto organization that operates on a smart contract in the blockchain space, and whatever the contract says goes. And so if somebody managed to like pilfer some money out of it, the contract allowed for it, so it has to be that way. It has to stay. Or you can use the government to like compel people to return the funds, but that means that all of your contracts are essentially meaningless because at any moment in
right.
time somebody can come in and say, okay, you, your contract said no take backsies. Take backsies
Yeah,
now, please.
that's
You're going
true.
to
Well, I
jail,
mean, generally,
right?
I mean, the contract would have to allow something unless they wanted to override the protocol. But yeah, that's the other part of Web3 that's really kind of still struggled. Pardon my neighborhood here a little bit as
Oh, you're muted. That's all right. I think my noise removal will probably get
okay.
rid of most of it.
Yeah, some interesting activities in East Berlin always. So yeah, the other side of Web3 was smart contract development. That was very uh, a big challenge also because yes, the Ethereum EVM and the choice to create a new language to write deterministic code in rather than using an existing language. I mean, there's arguments, and that's a long-standing, ongoing argument, of course. But that all created barriers to evolution and modernization. It's still very outdated the way it's currently used. Arguably, most smart contracts are using outdated standards. But we do have new standards. I was working on a project recently for Luxo and Fabian Vogelstelle. He's one of the OGs, the Dark Lord of Shit Tokens, they call him, because he's the author of ERC 20.
Okay.
And he was very, of course, aware of the limitations of these standards, and he's developed a whole new range of new standards that allows us to build more modern software within smart contracts, meaning we can actually follow proper patterns with code-based architecture specifically, which allows for more sophisticated applications. And yeah, everything was very much in the middle of being usable but secure, but then also upgradable, which
Hmm.
required some kind of administrative override of the
Right.
contract state to do updates.
You
So
kind of have to go make it in a way where you can sort of success itself with a new version.
yeah, and
For some reason,
we
I was thinking like how Erlang does it. You know, you have a running server that's running a bunch of code, and then you send it a command saying upgrade to the new version, and it's just like, okay, I'm just gonna upgrade everybody who's able to a new version, and it just kind of happens smoothly. So
yeah.
that would be pretty cool.
But those are the two big things. I mean, you touched on
Hmm.
both of them. Smart contract development, browser environment have been they're incapable of really supporting fully seamless user experiences
Yeah,
to this point. So it'll be a little while longer. This it's a major undertaking to try and disrupt the process of building that consensus, as we said, because it's very disparate and large group of people that are
very
working
self-interested too.
and very self-interested groups. So, I mean, the Ripple tried. I mean, they're now talking about X403 um, standards. That's a very old original spec from the Web 1 days, which was an
Hmm.
unused error message that was just a payment required error message. So
Oh,
now,
I see.
yeah, some groups have put together a new standard that they're trying to implement on in web
Yeah, I saw
in the
recently something for like request payment for when AI agents access your data, like trying to leverage that in there.
yeah they're
Yeah,
trying to
that's
do it's a very limited like base within which you could try and define a protocol because everything is just based on this one error message that's
hmm.
left over from like 1992.
Right, right, right.
So they didn't know how payments were going to work over the web then,
Yeah, yeah.
so they just said,
It's,
"Here's an
it's
error message."
speaking of payments tangentially, but like the other thing, the other criticism I hear about like Web3 blockchain style, smart contract style distributed computation is that by its nature, it's extremely expensive compared to your vanilla compute. I mean, even in the current age of AI data centers gobbling up all the hardware they could possibly reach, it's still much cheaper to do compute of general purpose tasks on regular hardware as opposed to delegating it to smart
Yeah.
contracts running in the blockchain. So like how can we even make that like the value proposition of it reasonable? Like the problem being solved has to be kind of so dire that it would actually make sense to go in that direction almost,
Yeah.
at least in my mind.
It's only really usable for securing of financial assets or other kinds of assets. I mean, nobody would really build a actual game in Solidity because it would be very expensive to
Hmm.
play the game. So that's, I mean, there
And
are all
and slow
kinds of
probably
limitations with
not just
Web3.
expensive but also slow, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot better. I mean, Ethereum has improved a lot over the last 5 years. In 2016, 17, 8, like the first version of Ethereum and the first ecosystem of tooling that was available, it was just very onerous and almost impossible to build anything really sophisticated or at scale. But
Yeah.
it's gotten a lot better. They increased the efficiency of the network. They eliminated the wasteful computing from the lottery system that it inherited from Bitcoin style architecture. Then they significantly optimize the network, and it's relatively low cost now. So I think especially for the what it is that you want it to use for, and the cases that it would need to be used for, it's relatively usable now. It's like
Interesting.
it's reasonably you can have reasonable expectations of building actual decent applications now in Web3. But then there's the other side is who really wants to sit down and build a reasonable, decent,
Well,
and good
I
application.
I would say the thought just came into my head is that like right now the eye of hype mortar has shifted firmly away from like crypto and DAOs and ICOs and you know just shit coins, and people are free to kind of build their stuff quietly in peace without having to like pump up the hype all the time. So maybe the ones building stuff now are past that. Oh my God, there's this like basically new Klondike, and we're selling pickaxes to everybody, making insane amount of money in process.
Yeah.
Now it all kind of settled down. It's like, okay, well, we can actually strategically figure out things and build them for long term, not just for like trying to make a quick buck here and
Yeah.
there.
There was that sentiment was very expressed at the recent Berlin Blockchain Week festival, where they have like 50 different events, and it's really cool because no event really has more than 50 people at it. So every event is small, and I can talk to like the founder of Gnosis, Frederica. I met the founder of Solana. I mean, everybody is very much more accessible at these smaller events, and it was no hype, obviously, because the markets are in the dumpster, and there was a lot of people really building. So, but the sentiment was similar to what you expressed amongst this whole series of events, and I think a lot of people were really excited about that because, yeah, the we can kind of build in the quiet a little bit while the market noise isn't around, and should hopefully, I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff happening with um, Ethereum, EVM type chains, performance, etc., as we said, but also different layers and interoperability between different layers and different ecosystems, and zero knowledge proofs.
Mm-hmm.
So over the next few years, it looks like we're going to have some really nice, usable uh, infrastructure to build real
Yeah,
decent applications that
yeah,
aren't going to
yeah.
be super slow, that aren't going to be super expensive, that should work pretty much seamlessly in parallel with existing systems. So the user experience is not worse.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess the
It
one,
should be at
yeah,
least not worse.
the one downside of the not having that much hype is also like not having that much investment flying about.
I
So
mean, from my perspective, yeah, like you could argue because I'm launching a project and we are now in the process of like doing some fundraising. But I thought because I had started 2 and a bit years ago trying to put a project together, maybe 3 years ago, at the first beginning of the idea. But I was finding it just as hard during a hype cycle to raise money for a real project as
I guess
now.
you're competing with everybody else during the hype cycle.
Yeah,
So even
like
though there's
no,
more money, there's more people vying
yeah,
for it
and
at
I'm
the
not
same
just
time.
doing a perp like a perp dex clone, or I'm not
Hmm.
just doing, oh, let me just do another ICO or do another stable token now. Is what the thing that is being copied to death now is, of course, these stable tokens, national fiat currency on blockchain, all this kind of, it's just being overdone.
Yeah,
Just like payment apps. So if you're not
yeah,
in
yeah.
that, like investors are not as tech savvy as we hope they would be, and they just are just following what they see the winds of the market telling them. So if somebody gets rich and has a lot of success with whatever it is, then they're just going to copy that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, anyway, so it looks like the time is now. It's kind of calm and more predictable these days, and looks like we have the man of the hour. So tell us more about the thing, the consensus,
The
distributed
consensus
consensus
engine,
thing.
yeah, I mean, we can get into it. The interesting part, of course, is like what would it do that's different? I mean, the idea was to try and solve the problem from the user experience side first, rather than just come up with some new, really highly technical and complex governance system or voting tally system, starting with
So
the user experience first.
so like, who's your user? Like we've chatted a couple of weeks ago. You sent me some documents about the thing, and I had a chance to look at them. But I've been out of that space for a while, and while I can appreciate the overall sort of shape of the thing, I'm still not entirely certain. So if you can tell me a bit more, like, what is this gonna help me do, or
So if you were a
who
member,
should
if
I be in the first place for it to help me ahead of time?
yeah, if you're a member of an organization that is doing active decision making in regards to business or what have you, then there are processes that people are going through to try and resolve this conversation. We've all been through this in any one a number of companies. And so my original idea was to a more of a B2C idea where I was trying to create a cool, fun, social enabled app that would allow us to share opinions on anything, more like a casual kind of prediction market
Mhm.
situation. And
Sharing
then,
opinions on anything can be pretty politically inconvenient these days in a
yeah,
lot of places.
absolutely. Absolutely. I'm getting used to navigating this. Luckily, I'm politically agnostic and naive, so
Yeah.
I don't.
Well, you gotta take care because Germany is not the best for that type of stuff.
I mean, I'm doing quite well at just playing the platform builder
Right.
at this stage of the game, and we're doing it not as much for public issues like would be maybe controversial in some ways. We're doing it more for private, internal
Corporate. Yeah.
discussions,
That
corporate
makes
and
sense.
institutional level. And the idea is that you could take a group of people and we have a tool that we all use, an app, and then there are questions being proposed, polling, voting, or whatever happens. But the interesting part is that I took a specific scientific method for, let's say, voting analysis, and I implemented this within the user process flow. So the user experience is actually a part of the process itself. And so what you end up trying to do is take noise out of the signal.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a group of people, and people can have very opinions about things, but we have a process that is creating a psychological effect primarily on the user as they're using the application, and the way that we are proposing limited segments of the question to users at a time. So it's an
Mm-hmm.
iterative process.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a computing system would sort data according to some, operational condition,
I see.
like a greater than or a less than, whereas
Mm-hmm.
we're
Mm-hmm.
doing something similar but with a distributed computing system of users and the wisdom of the crowd who are getting to sort preferences at a granular level
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to decision making processes. So how that would look would be, we're in an organization, we have a working group or a committee, we have some kind of disagreement that we just can't get beyond on a simple 10-minute call, and we just put a few pieces of information, like almost as simple as a tweet, hopefully, and then users are doing something more sophisticated than just thumbs up or thumbs down.
Mm-hmm.
And so the end result is proven science, and we can show that if you take a group of in group A and group B, you give them the same query without our method, you're going to have more noise in the signal. You give them the same query with our method, you'll have less noise, meaning less divergence
Mm-hmm.
from the common consensus. So what we can do is we can actually show that group this is your truest representation of the intent of your group. And
Interesting.
then this process is scientific and provable, which means it's trustable. So then we
Mm-hmm.
have the ability to create more conviction in the consensus. That's really what it boils down to, because we can create some democratic process and we can go through it, and then I can say, well, I don't, that was that was BS, it was rigged, or whatever. So we're just taking that kind of part out of it and taking the noise of the mental state of a lot of people out of the actual process. So you have to consider things in a process with more depth.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And
So
we're trying to make it like a very simple card,
Hmm.
swapping, organizing system that's fun to use as well. So
Yeah. I
that's
guess
the
just
concept for the
yeah, yeah.
product itself.
That's like for being a devil's advocate for a moment, like how does that entire idea, because like it seems like okay, so there's a scientific method describing the process of obtaining consensus in a higher fidelity than any arbitrary random method, right? That's fair enough. But like how does that entire thing benefit from being built in like blockchain Web3 smart contract space? Like,
Yeah.
can you
So,
not just build it without it?
well, we built it. I've built it without it to start
Hmm.
with, obviously, because we're demonstrating the product itself and the value proposition of the product. Like that's where I was coming from with this whole thing and with everything, as it relates to the technology, which is that I'm focusing on trying to build a real application that will
Hmm.
bring value in itself. And of course, when it comes to business, and at this level, compliance is a big issue. And so notarization on blockchain is a very popular thing,
Hmm.
for having proof that something happened in the past that people can point to and then lay blame on if they need to. So that's really the reason, number one. Number two, the other problem to solve when it comes to doing this on sovereign systems, which is a big interest beyond just hacker culture people. This is important when it comes to business and business intelligence and corporate secrets and things like this. Is they want to have security over their data, and then you need to solve the problem of secure access to that data,
Hmm.
and that's where digital identity comes into play. And then we also have to be concerned with privacy when it comes to digital identity. So
Yeah.
that's basically the trifecta as it relates to the requirements that we're going to need from blockchain in order to satisfy
Yeah.
our
I guess because that
customers.
that raises a whole bunch of like additional things. Now, like as you're talking about it, I'm thinking about it, and things like identity on like let's say you notarize that you are you on the blockchain in some method, right? I don't know exactly how that happens. And then you say, okay, I have this private information, like I have this vote that we've reached a consensus on, but like all the details of that process are private. It's just the fact of it happening and a fact of decision being made is captured on blockchain. Like you still need to tie it back to some external data store. And let's say you as an identity that has been notarized on a blockchain, there's a flag there saying that like you are permitted to participate in a voting for this decision. But like once you notarize it on the blockchain, that's essentially for as long as the internet is going to be around. So that's forever. So like, how do you do things like invalidation in the future? Like if you're being
Mhm.
kicked out, dishonorably discharged from the organization, like how do we revoke that away from you so you can't interfere going on and forward?
Yeah, yeah. It's a big problem.
Right.
It's not fully solved. We have the technology building blocks right now because zero knowledge proofs have come far enough
Mm-hmm.
that we have methods of doing sovereign digital identity on blockchain that's also private. And
Mm-hmm.
we can do selective challenging of the data so you can get a Boolean result out of the data, for instance, without actually knowing the data. So you could
Yeah.
say, this data is proves by an issuing authority also, which is kind of what you need with identity. There's some kind of group or organization to which you're going to be a member of. You need the identity as approved by that organization. They are kind of overseeing the quality and reality of the data. But subsequent to that, you could prove that you were, say, of age to buy alcohol without
Yeah,
having to
which is like a
reveal.
big deal that's happening like around Europe and Australia and other places for like this whole age verification thing.
Right, age verification, location verification, but without giving specific access to the data away.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. It's more
I
of
don't need to know
a
your birthday. I just need to know that you're over 21.
exactly. Which the thing is, again, I'm kind of very cynical about things like that. I always see these attempts not as attempts to, you know, solve a public problem, but like just it's just a pretense to obtain more control. So if you
Yeah,
build a perfect system that actually lets people validate their age without divulging their personal information, people in charge of the system are going to say, yeah, that's all well and good, but like we can't actually use it for what we want to use it for, you know?
true. This is a question that we talk about in our group. We have a group of, let's say, related projects that we're collaborating on together to try and solve these issues. We feel, and I had a discussion group today with an organization here in Europe that is, let's say, uh, influencing policy. And so there is enough, I think there's a strong enough sentiment within institutions that are trying to influence policy that they do want to have some bare minimum of personal rights and freedoms. GDPR was actually interestingly positive, mostly in that regards, in how it wanted to respect users' right to their data, at least.
Yeah.
So I think there's positives. I'm not 100% cynical, but I think as long as there's enough positive
Yeah.
support for that, we can put
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
negative forces at bay and say, look, we're creating valid identity. You can check things against this identity. You can create records of your own for criminal activities. Somebody could charge you with a crime, let's say, and attach it to an identity. They may not know everything about you, but they could still
Mm,
attach this adjudication to you.
yeah.
So it
And
facilitates. It's like I like
I,
the film Minority Report,
yes.
right? So I mean that's the perfect tale of morality as it relates to this question in like lay people's terms, maybe, or as a story.
Like, funnily enough, the whole plot of the story was that like the system was basically built on a lie and abused in the process, while
Exactly
being the
right.
pretenses of being this universal good. So yeah,
Exactly.
I really hope that people who can put adjudications on attached to my identity will actually have, you know, reasonable permissions to do so, and I can't just, attach like some tickets onto someone's life all willy-nilly.
I mean, that's where it comes into, I think, the challenge of migrating large scale institutions and organizations onto blockchain.
Hmm.
We have to create the organizations still again on blockchain through smart contracts and digital identity. I mean, the people who are organizing the project themselves will have to have some kind of digital identity, even if it was just pseudo anonymous keys, right?
Hmm.
For them to initiate some kind of
Yeah.
query or
Yeah,
proposition or
there needs to be
adjudication,
the Genesis block effectively at some in some
right?
form. Yeah, yeah.
And then it's interesting to see how much the people who want power also want privacy, right?
Oh, they want privacy more than anybody else, right? They just don't want you to have any. And like, okay, like I'm fairly cynical about these things, but at the same time, like I can see the good things that came out of EU, like GDPR. In one way, the ability to like request data about yourself and ability to enforce people to delete data about yourself is pretty good. Standardizing USB-C everywhere was a grand idea. They're basically making strides into like repairability of things and like user replaceable batteries. These are just kind of like these things that I kind of keep an eye on. I'm sure there's more good stuff, but at the same time, there's a lot of like really questionable things that are happening in there. So I don't know. I don't know if the good outweighs the bad,
I would
or
say on the technical side that we have the ability to define at least standards, doing standards design. This was an interesting conversation that I was having today with this group, which is they were coming to the same conclusions, which is just don't worry necessarily about enforcement one way or the other. If we can design good protocols and good standards that respect this basic rights, let's say at that level,
Mhm.
then and that is an open standard,
Yeah,
then you can't say then that standard can't be corrupted at least. Um,
Well, in the beginning of our conversation, we were talking about the whole can we rely on smart contracts to be the ultimate arbiter of reality in a sense, right? And it's like we can build the system and we can onboard a whole bunch of organizations on it, but like what happens if there's like some core vulnerability that just undoes everything? Like
yeah.
the risk of having that is so high, like I would be having problems like sleeping at night if I were to build and deploy a system like that and have it actually used by massive organizations. I don't know. Cold sweat would be running down in between my shoulder blades every day, thinking like, "Oh my god, I hope we don't get freaking owned today
Yeah. We
somehow."
have a lot of new tools. And I think what it all boils down to is, yes, even let's say I was to write immutable smart contracts on a network, let's say that wasn't Ethereum, I think it's really hard to compel Ethereum to mutate the chain, first of all. I don't think that's possible. And I don't think even censorship is really realistically expectable if even if you're a government of Ethereum. So building something on Ethereum that was immutable would be pretty doable.
Hmm.
But smaller blockchains is even, let's say, less
Yeah,
so at this point to be guaranteed. But I think that what I'm always focusing on is regardless, I mean, the Ethereum protocol can change. The
yeah,
Ethereum community could change. The distribution of power within the Ethereum network could change. There's many new foundations starting up and many new
yeah,
organizations
yeah.
participating. So
But those are like foundational questions that the entire crypto world is trying to answer. It's like, how do we maintain continuity if entire foundation has been replaced and we want to keep it going exactly the same so nobody can
yeah.
actually tamper with it, right? So like philosophically that's the point beyond the I can transfer some money around or whatever.
Yeah,
um
as soon as you get beyond DeFi, it's a much bigger
yeah,
challenge.
yeah. I was thinking what was I had in mind about it. Oh yes. So I think right now, even if you have like a read-only immutable contract, recently there was this thing about vulnerability on some older iPhone models that sits in the ROM of the device, so you can't release a patch to fix it. It's like forever vulnerable to that thing, right? So it's for as long as the last remaining iPhone 5 is in existence, it's going to be vulnerable to that thing, right? So those are the types of things you don't want to have in your smart contract, right? Because like,
Yeah.
or you need to have the mechanism for succession that is, oh my god, man, I don't envy being uh,
A Web3 developer,
a
no, it has
Web3
not been
developer. Yeah, yeah,
it's not been very enjoyable. But it's a process. We're in the phase of Web 2.5 still, which is kind of where we started out anyways, but it just has to continue to where we evolve better, broader agreement on core protocols. I mean, there's tons of new ERC, EIPs that have been published over the years that make it better for accounts abstraction, clear signing on wallets, um, better processing of transactions, trying to eliminate MEV and all this kind of stuff. So I think it's just the consequence of being in the middle of a tech revolution. The tech is just kind of normal now. It's maybe kind of like the mid 90s where everybody had heard about the internet, but it still kind of sucked.
yeah,
But the whole 2.0 phase with social networks and eBay and PayPal is still, I think, yet to really happen. I don't think DeFi is really some major innovation. We're just doing TradFi things, but on
on top
blockchain,
of, yeah, blockchain,
which is
exactly.
necessary. We need interoperability at the financial layer, but we still have yet to see kind of applications. My idea with what I'm doing is trying to, in a way, represent the functions and value of blockchain to non-blockchain users, which is participating in more direct democratic processes and letting
Yeah,
people have access to what we have
yeah,
is voting, like token voters. If you had done proof of stake or something that works,
Yeah, yeah,
you're able to participate and vote. And I've found it very amazing experience to be able to
yeah, yeah.
participate that, and especially when
I've
it
done
was new.
Cardano, so I think they use
Yeah.
that model. Yeah.
So I think if we can get people spread that to more people and say, oh, this is it's a new concept that we hope to kind of have affect democratic systems as well, which is direct democracy, transparency, full accountability to the public, and also more flexibility for
You know,
participants.
this just remind me. I don't know if you watched it back in the day, like the Dilbert animated series. It used to be in Canada on Cartoon Network, and there was an episode where Dilbert's company is tasked with building the internet voting system, and he has like all these ethical implications because all these lobbyists are basically like just bringing piles and piles of cash to him and like all these things, so he gives them like a backdoor access to the internet voting system, and in the end, there's like a couple of these little vignettes. One, it's like basically some Appalachian hillbilly. They're like a bunch of them gathered around a wood stump, and then there's a toaster on it, and they say like which button is for Democrat. And the other one was like a bunch of Illuminati led by Dogbert, of course, saying it's like, oh, internet voting system, whatever. He like chucks it over the shows, like, okay, who are we going to elect the president today, right? So it's like with all of these great intentions, I hope it finds a place in the world where it can, because I think purely theoretically, in terms of like math and cryptography, a traceable, non-repudiated voting record has been possible for quite a while. It's just like, and I bet people even bothered doing it, but it never made it into reality for some reason, you know?
I don't think
So,
people took the time, as is usual in the blockchain space, to think about the user first and to try
mm.
and build a user
Oh,
product.
I'm saying even separate from blockchain space,
Oh,
like
even
before blockchain
separate,
even
sure,
existed. Yeah.
sure. But I mean, the problem always was is who has the control over the voting data. Like where are the actual votes literally counted and what database do they exist? If that's a centrally controlled database in a closed source environment, then it's not
Yeah,
trustable.
exactly.
So at least with blockchain, we can put results on the chain. We can prove the results. There's going to be problems in the interim. I'm sure people will try to fake identities and influence
Yeah.
outcomes. That's
Because like
going to be inevitable.
one other thing, one other big thing I would say with immutable data structures such as blockchain is like I want my voting records to be what's the word? My English not so good right now, brain farts. Like non-repudiation, you know? Like I don't want you to be able to say, "Hey, Vasili, you voted for this guy at that date
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
blockchain
yeah.
records prove it." Like I want my vote to be counted. I want to be verified that I did it, but I don't want other people necessarily attributing it back to me because the practice and the theory shows that
Right.
anonymous voting always works better than when the details are known because then people can be coerced and all these other things that we don't want
Yeah, yeah.
happening.
Well, these are big technical challenges, but I think as you alluded to, the cryptography, I mean, it's outside of my specific field. Applied cryptography is not my field, it's not my education. But as a consumer of that technology for many decades in web, I always have to keep up on it. And so I've seen recently that the technology exists for us to do just that. We can prove through zero knowledge proofs that things happened or that data existed without revealing exactly
Hmm.
um, what it was that happened.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a very interesting area to be in, and I wish you all the best of luck. So, is there something that people can kind of look at, or read a white paper, or just kind of poke their fingers at anything, or is it
Um,
still?
no, right now we're just trying to get out to, let's say, a consumer facing part.
Hmm.
Like I said, I was trying to build it as a consumer product and it just didn't really, it's too, um, application or issue specific. I found it was issue specific. If I
Hmm.
was delivering something to people that was related to their interest, they were interested. Kind of to wrap it up, um, the idea is kind of we have a big vision for this concept as to what it could affect or disrupt in terms of governance processes. Um, but the big thing is, regardless of my opinion about what it is or anything like this, you don't really have an opportunity to deliver something like this to the market unless you can find a market.
Right.
So the fact that we have just tremendous interest, just to give you an idea, we have pilot projects starting here in Germany. The first one is with a national healthcare services provider, which is a highly data sensitive
Yeah.
project. And then,
I work in digital health. I know how it is.
oh, you know about this. And then we are also talking with one of the major political parties here in Germany already, and as well multinational consulting groups. These are people who have expressed direct interest in what
Hmm.
it is that we're doing, and they want to try and use our tool to help improve their process. There are a lot of people, and this is kind of like addressing maybe a little bit of the cynic attitude that you have. I'm also, of course, coming from a critical perspective, but I found that there are a lot of people maybe who are trying to do good things in government or large scale institutions and business enterprise, and they are very dissatisfied with systems and processes that they have to use.
Yeah.
So that's why they're looking for something different. They're looking for something new. That's why we're getting interest.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I really hope that you've achieved degrees of success with this. And I guess we can probably like catch up in a couple of months to see if there's been any developments. That would be really cool to know about.
Yeah, we're currently in a venture program here in Germany as well.
Hmm.
So we've been selected to participate in kind of as a typical accelerator kind of thing where they prepare you and get you up to speed and get your package together so that you can better go to get some venture capital and things like this. So things are progressing very well for us. I mean, I
Right on.
wouldn't be pursuing this if we didn't have. I'm very practical when it comes to doing anything like this. I'm not an
Pragmatic.
ideologue.
Yeah.
I do
Yeah.
not want to spend my time on just something that I think is a great pie in the sky idea. I could do that as a hobby, but if I'm going to put my full time into this, there has to be a way for us to, get a return on our investment.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I mean, you've been doing this hustle for like what, 20 years?
15 years in crypto.
Yeah. 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 It's crazy. It's crazy how far back it goes, and the ebbs and flows of it that we've seen
We
throughout our
could do
time.
like a blockchain history story time episode
Yeah.
one day.
Yeah.
I mean, there's tons of stuff going back to the Vancouver days, the early days
Yep.
in San
Yeah.
Francisco. There
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
lots of really cool things. I mean, a lot of great work was done. A lot of great
Yeah, no,
interesting stuff.
I still keep a lot of connections from that time. So yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I feel like it's midnight where you are, so I should probably let you go. And
Thank you.
this has been really interesting and good time to reminisce. I guess we talked more about technology and politics and philosophy of things and didn't really get a chance to catch up more on a personal level, but we can do it some other time. And for everyone who's watching, I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see Robert sometime in the future, I hope. And with that,
Absolutely. I'll
thank you.
definitely come back with a lot of great more news and updates. I mean,
Right on.
this was a very loose introduction, like you said, went a lot of different places. There's a lot of interesting stuff in the technical specifics, the history behind what's going on, and
Yeah,
we'll have
yeah.
more progress to talk about.
Awesome. So
Stay in
yeah,
touch, everybody.
stay in touch, everybody. And with that, thank you and goodbye.